In this episode, I do discuss two shows that some could argue aren't appropriate for any age, but for the sake of art, I would say it is acceptable to watch them. However, do so with a discerning mind. Now on to the video! Alright, I'm going to describe to you a show, and then I'd like you to guess what show it is that I'm describing. We follow the story of two characters. Person A is struggling to find control in their life and place in the world, while Person B falls in love with Person A. However, Person B has an unknown and seemingly dark past, which we uncover as the show continues on. Their infatuation with Person A becomes obsessive, and they take more and more drastic actions to get rid of the people in Person A's life that pose a threat to their relationship. Is the love deeply romantic, or is it wickedly sinister? Will Person A wise up to the crimes of Person B, or will they ignore them in favor of preserving their euphoric joy as a couple? Also phones are really important in the show. Most of you likely thought about the same show, a show that I like immensely. That's right, I think You is great. And no, I'm not speaking with some casual poor grammar, no. I'm referring to the television series called You.
I've read people wrong in the past.
Are you following me?
You is a Netflix original that garnered a significant following in recent years for being unique, suspenseful, and balancing difficult themes and characters. Many of you who have seen it are likely awaiting the third season, which was slated for late 2020, but is now postponed due to, Anyways, the story follows Joel, a bookstore owner who falls in love with a girl named Beck. However, Joel's interest in her becomes obsessive and he will go to any means to find his way into her heart. This show is certainly a fun watch and I would highly recommend it, except for me at least, the concept wasn't the first of its kind. Do you remember that show description from the beginning? Well, that exact description also applies to a show I saw years before You, an incredible anime called Future Diary.
This meeting adjourned.
Now, some people like Future Diary, and some people hate it. But for me, I rated it the second highest on my own personal anime tier list. And it's true that both of these shows have a boring person dragged through the story by a fanatical lover who whips you back and forth between rooting for their relationship and screaming at the TV in hopes that the other character will wise up to their insanity for their lover and run away as fast as they can. However, this is more or less where the similarities end. So what makes Future Diary different? Well, in Future Diary, the protagonist is the more boring, not-so-crazy one, and the obsessive one is the side character. This approach has its own benefits and deficits. See, the good thing is that there's so much more mystery, wondering what made the obsessive one so infatuated with our protagonist. However, since in You we follow the crazy person as the protagonist, we get to see all their actions rationalized and get to look into the mind of someone who makes decisions that most people would never dream of making. In Future Diary, the crazy person, Yuno, is someone the protagonist, Yuki, has in one of his high school classes. But then she rather suddenly confesses her feelings for him, and we as the viewer get to wonder why. As the show progresses, Yuki slips into having a normal relationship with this girl, and the two of them are incredibly happy together. But then something happens, she rips someone open with her knife, ties him up, hides him, dating stuff. But after all that, she explains her actions and makes up for it by being the ideal significant other in practically every other regard. So it's really easy to forget about the, like the murders and stuff. And the protagonist does just that. Another difference is the setting of the story. The plot of You takes place in modern-day New York, and there's references to social media and pop culture and all that kind of stuff. This allows the plot to be relatively simple, focusing on the relationships between the characters and the actions of the protagonist. Now this is where it gets really different. You see, in Future Diary, the god of this reality is dying from old age and needs to elect a new deity. He does so by selecting 12 people, giving them unique ways to see the near future, and then having them kill each other until only one remains to be crowned the new Deus Ex Machina before the current Deus Ex Machina dies. That's what they call their god in this world. It's more like Odin than it is like Judeo-Christian god anyway. So Yuki, the protagonist, and Yuno, the wild lady, end up teaming up since Yuki doesn't know how to fight, and not only does Yuno know how to fight, but she knows how to fight real well, and she can also see the future, but only as it happens to Yuki. You see, the reason it's called Future Diary is because all the people competing to become a god were given a way to tell the future, called a Future Diary. And for most of the competitors, they just get updates on their phone about the future, but it varies from person to person. For Yuno, she gets updates about what happens to Yuki. For Yuki, he gets updates on things happening around him, but not to him. Some other girl gets updates on how she escapes situations, and another person gets updates on everything that their employees can see. So it leaves a lot of room for variety.
I'm so damn confused.
So alright, you're kicking your dog, you're throwing your hands up going, Mr. Sweet, these shows are no like deities, battle royales, future tonight, yeah! But the core of each of these shows is the relationship between the two main characters. The backdrop just allows the story to unfold a little bit differently. They both have unhealthy romances, friends that complicate things, and a character archetype known as a Yandere, which is described as a Japanese term for a person who is initially very loving and gentle to someone before their devotion becomes destructive in nature, often through violence and or brutality. Now, I would say if you feel like TV's become too samey, predictable, and formulaic, these are both good shows to get into. But while You turns it up to 10, and it certainly does, Future Diary just rips it up to 11.
Most blokes are going to be playing at 10. Where can you go from there?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly. You know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
This is typically just the nature of anime, but a lot of people don't like that and they want something more realistic, and if that's you, then You is the way for you to go. Ahaha. And while You has excellent visuals and a score reminiscent of the band Postal Service, and maybe a little bit like Tron Legacy's soundtrack, and then it gets all indie romance, and it's just, oh, it's good. It also feels so realistic because at least in the beginning, the writers had a pretty good handle on what young adult culture is like right now. It didn't try too hard to throw in a bunch of slang that some 60-year-old writers stole from a Facebook meme.
How do you do, fellow kids?
And one of the biggest aspects of the show is how the main character stalks the girl that he likes through social media, which is so likely. I mean, social media tells people your name, what you look like, who knows you, who you know, places you frequently visit. I mean, my gosh, why do we do this? Why do we have social media? This is a terrible idea. On the other hand, Future Diary's plot is incredibly unique. Having the characters fight to claim godhood allows us to learn so much about them based on how they operate throughout this game and what motivates them. And giving everyone a personalized way to see the future that reveals aspects of each characters and shakes up the encounters is just so interesting to watch. All these factors reveal new perspectives on the nuances of relationships, not just about with people that we want to date, but with friends and family and their importances, their roles, and the grays that exist within each of them. We learn about the importance of taking responsibility for your own life and the influence you have over the world around you, but also dealing with the lack of control that we face daily and the various aspects of existentialism we don't normally encounter or think about. There's just so much packed into this show, it's insane. Both of these shows have a lot going for them. I don't really think that one is better than the other, but Future Diary taught me something. It made me feel so much, and it left me with more than just a thrilling series of events, and that's kind of how I felt about You. You was engaging, but will I remember it in a few years? Probably not. But hey, everyone's experiences are differently, and what worked for me might not work for you. Also, both of these shows deal with some pretty intense themes and are pretty graphic. If you're a parent or uncomfortable with violent or sexual themes, I don't recommend either of these. Don't tell anyone that I told you to watch them because I'm not telling you to watch either of them. But if you happen to accidentally stumble upon them like I did, then I'd be happy to discuss them in the comments below. But I am not making you do anything. And I am not responsible for how you decide to use your own time, okay? It's not on me. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a good one.